My name is Anita Robinson. I am 38 years old. Last Christmas, my father stood up in front of 25 relatives, raised his glass, and said with a smile, "Here's to my daughter. She finally found her calling as a janitor." The room went dead silent. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I simply thanked him for dinner and walked out. 2 months later, he started a new job. On his first day, he walked into the lobby, looked up at the wall, and his face went completely white. Let me tell you how we got there. Before I continue, if you're already hooked and want to hear the full story, please hit the like button and subscribe. It really helps me know which stories you want to hear more of. And while you're here, drop your location and what time it is, where you're listening from in the comments. I love knowing where this story is reaching. All right, let's go back to that Christmas dinner 2025. Aunt Judith's house in Myers Park. The old money neighborhood in Charlotte where the houses have columns and the driveways circle around fountains. This was the 18th consecutive year the Robinson family had gathered there. 25 of us, spread across a mahogany table that could seat 30. Crystal glasses catching the light from the chandelier. The smell of glazed ham and sweet potato casserole thick in the air. I hadn't been to one of these in 3 years. I'd found reasons to skip. Work trips, prior commitments, a convenient flu. But this year, my mother asked me to come. Actually asked. And something in her voice made me say yes. I arrived at 6:30. My father was already there, holding court in the living room with my uncle and 2 cousins, talking about professional success. I heard him before I saw him. His voice has always carried. He was explaining something about market positioning and strategic advantage, gestures broad, confidence absolute. Aunt Judith met me at the door. "Anita, so good you could make it. We were just talking about professional achievements. Your cousin Nathan just made junior partner at his law firm." I smiled, congratulated Nathan, asked the appropriate questions. Aunt Judith guided me toward the living room, where my father caught my eye across the room. He raised his glass slightly. The smile didn't reach his eyes. Dinner was called at 7:15. We took our seats. I ended up between a second cousin I barely knew and an empty chair that belonged to someone running late. My mother sat 4 seats down, close enough to make brief eye contact, too far to rescue me from small talk. The relatives asked me about work. Standard questions. "What are you doing these days, Anita?" I gave standard answers. Corporate services, facilities management, based here in Charlotte. My father, 6 seats away, grew more animated with each glass of wine. I watched him from the corner of my eye. He was telling a story about a deal he'd closed, a decision he'd made, the kind of narrative designed to establish dominance. People laughed at the appropriate moments. At 7:47, right before dessert, he stood up. He tapped his glass with a fork. The sound cut through the conversation. 25 people turned to look. Aunt Judith smiled, expecting a toast to family or holiday cheer. "I'd like to make a toast," my father said. His voice was steady, performative. "To family. To those of us who've built real careers, made something of ourselves." He paused. "Let that settle." Then he turned slightly toward me. "And to my daughter Anita, who's found her calling as, what do you call it, honey?" I said nothing. "Oh, right. Facilities manager. That's janitor, for those who don't speak corporate euphemism." The room went dead silent. Someone's phone buzzed. A chair creaked. Nathan coughed into his napkin. 25 pairs of eyes turned to me, waiting for the reaction, waiting for me to defend myself, to explain, to cry, to argue back. I stood slowly, smoothed my napkin, placed it beside my plate with deliberate care. "Thank you for dinner, Aunt Judith," I said. My voice was level. "It was lovely, as always." I looked at my father. "Dad." That was all I said to him. Just the one word. I walked toward the foyer. My heels clicked on the hardwood floor. Behind me, the silence held. I could feel 25 people watching my back. I took my coat from the rack, slipped it on, and opened the front door. As I reached for the handle, my father's voice called out, "Running away again, Anita? That's what you do best." I didn't turn around. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. The cold December air hit my face. I walked to my car, a well-maintained Acura I'd bought outright 2 years prior, and got in. I sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, the dashboard clock reading 7:53. I didn't cry. I just sat there, breathing. Through the window, I could see shadows moving inside the house. The party was continuing without me. Laughter drifted out, muffled but audible. I gave myself 11 minutes. 11 minutes to decide if that was the last Christmas dinner I would ever attend. By 8:04, I had my answer. My phone lit up. A text from my mother. "Are you okay?" I typed a response, deleted it. Typed again. "I'm fine. Talk tomorrow." Then I pulled up my work email. One unread message from Philip Hendricks, CEO of Crescent Solutions. Board meeting moved to January 6th. Operations committee update needed. I put the phone down, started the engine, and drove home. My father has never believed in me. Not once. Not ever. I need you to understand that this isn't me feeling sorry for myself. This is just the truth. Documented over 38 years. When I was 18, I got accepted to UNC Chapel Hill. Good school, respected business program. I was proud. My mother cried happy tears in the kitchen. My father's response, "UNC is fine, Anita, but it's not exceptional. You need exceptional if you want to make something of yourself." I asked him what he meant. He didn't look up from his newspaper. Duke, Stanford, Wharton MBA. That's the path. You're starting from behind. I was 18 years old, holding my acceptance letter, and he was already telling me I'd disappointed him. He set the expectations that day. Business degree, then law school or MBA. That was the plan he'd decided for me. When I asked what if I didn't want law school, he finally looked at me. "Then you'll have wasted 4 years." I graduated in 2009. The economy was in ruins. Jobs were scarce. I took what I could get. An analyst position at a mid-size logistics company, $38,000 a year. I was grateful to have it. My father's reaction to my first job. Now the real work begins. 2 years later, I got promoted to coordinator. I was 24, managing a team of 3, finally feeling like I understood something about how businesses actually operate. My father, still entry level. In 2013, I made manager. 26 years old, decent salary, real responsibility. I called him to share the news. Middle management is where careers go to die, Anita. By 2015, I was senior manager. 28 years old. I'd redesigned our warehouse flow system and saved the company $1.8 million in the first year alone. I got written up in a trade journal. My boss told me I was on a VP track. My father, "You're 28 and not a director yet? Do you see the pattern?" Every achievement was a deficit. Every step forward was proof I should have been further. In 2016, I made VP, 29 years old. VP of Corporate Services at Piedmont Logistics. I was the youngest person at that level in company history. I managed a $180 million budget and 340 employees across 6 states. When I called to tell him, he said, "VP of what? What does that even mean?" Then he put me on hold to take another call. When he came back, he'd forgotten we were talking. I stopped calling him with updates after that. But the dismissals didn't stop. They just changed venue. Family dinners, casual conversations, passing comments to relatives. "Anita's in facilities, you know, maintenance and stuff. Not really a career path, but she seems happy. In 2017, my mother confided in me over coffee. We were at a shop in South Park, afternoon light coming through the windows. She wrapped her hands around her latte cup and twisted her wedding ring absently. "He used to be different, Anita," she said. "Or maybe I just didn't see it. He measures everything by money and status, and when you didn't become what he imagined, he couldn't handle it." I asked her why she stayed with him. She looked away. "Because I've been a housewife for 30 years. What would I even do?" 1 year later, she answered that question. She left him. My parents' divorce was finalized in March 2018. I was 30 years old. My mother filed after a separation period required by North Carolina law. She got a settlement of $340,000 and the house they'd shared for 3 decades. My father moved to a smaller apartment and grew bitter in ways that made him dangerous to be around. He blamed me. Not the separation, not the years of small cruelties, not the way he'd made her feel small. Me. 3 weeks after the divorce was final, he called me. I was in my office at Piedmont looking at my nameplate, VP Corporate Services, when my phone rang. "This is your fault," he said. No greeting, no preamble. "Your mother left because I don't respect you, because I put you down. So congratulations, Anita. You broke up your parents' marriage. That's your real achievement." I took a breath. "Mom is leaving because of how you treat people, Dad. Not because of me." "Keep telling yourself that." He hung up. For 2 years, we didn't speak. My mother and I grew closer. She started taking art classes at the community college. She traveled to Italy with a group of women her age. She volunteered at a literacy program. She painted her kitchen bright yellow and told me it felt like waking up. "I should have done this 20 years ago," she said to me over lunch one day. "I'm 60 years old and finally learning who I am. Don't ever let anyone make you small, Anita." Meanwhile, my father stagnated. Same job, same salary, same apartment with furniture that didn't quite fit. Extended family members told me he'd become difficult at gatherings, defensive, argumentative, always steering conversations back to perceived slights. In 2020, he sent me an email. It arrived at 11:37 p.m. on a Tuesday. Subject line: "The truth." The body of the email said, "You've always been an embarrassment, but I tried to push you to be better. Your mother couldn't handle my high standards. She chose you over me. So now you have what you wanted, a broken family. Enjoy your facilities career." I read it 3 times. I started typing a response, deleted it, started again, deleted it. Finally, I closed the email without responding. I opened a different email instead. An invitation that had been sitting in my inbox for 2 days. "We would like to discuss your potential interest in joining the board of directors at Crescent Solutions." I clicked, "Accept meeting." I stopped waiting for his approval the day my mother signed the divorce papers. It turned out I didn't need it. I never did. While my father was stagnating, I was building something he couldn't see. When I started in this industry in 2009, facilities management was seen as a cost center. A necessary expense. The people who kept buildings running, maintained equipment, managed vendor relationships. We were invisible until something broke. I saw it differently. I saw inefficiency everywhere. I saw systems that had been designed once and never questioned. I saw opportunities. My first big win came in 2012. I'd been promoted to coordinator, managing logistics for a warehouse network. I noticed our material flow was designed around equipment we'd replaced 3 years prior. Nobody had bothered to redesign the layout. I spent 6 weeks mapping every movement, every handoff, every bottleneck. I presented a redesign to my boss, Alan Crawford. He looked at my proposal and said, "Robinson, you see patterns nobody else sees. Most people manage facilities. You architect them." We implemented the changes. Year 1 savings. $1.8 million. That got attention. By 2015, I'd become known for something specific. While everyone else in the industry was still thinking about preventive maintenance, I was piloting IoT sensors for predictive maintenance. Smart buildings weren't just a buzzword to me, they were an operational revolution. I started getting invited to speak at conferences. Trade journals interviewed me. In 2017, I was featured in Facilities Management Journal's Rising Stars issue. My father never saw that article. He never asked. In 2016, at 29, I became VP of Corporate Services at Piedmont Logistics. The CFO, Douglas Hamilton, told me I was the youngest VP in company history. My responsibilities expanded overnight. 6 states, $180 million budget, 340 employees, from custodial staff to facility engineers. I didn't just manage the division, I transformed it. Implemented real-time monitoring systems, cut costs by 23% while improving every service metric, turned facilities from a line item into a competitive advantage. In 2019, I got a call from a headhunter. "We're assembling a board for a mid-size company. Your name came up. Interested?" I said I'd think about it. I did think about it. Then I said yes. My first board seat came in 2022. A tech company, $50 million in revenue, looking for someone who understood operational efficiency. I learned governance, fiduciary duty, strategic oversight. I learned how to ask the questions that boards need to ask. Then, in December 2023, Crescent Solutions reached out. They were a regional logistics firm, $180 million in revenue, 420 employees, headquartered right here in Charlotte. They needed a board member with deep operational expertise. I met with their CEO, Philip Hendricks, in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the Charlotte skyline. He laid out what they were looking for. "Most board members understand finance or marketing," he said. "Very few understand the operational backbone. You're that rare person who can look at a P&L and immediately ask about facilities utilization and supply chain efficiency. That's what we need." I asked questions, good questions, about their growth strategy, their capital allocation, their operational challenges. By the end of the meeting, I could see the shift in the room. They'd started by evaluating me. Now they were selling me on joining. The board voted unanimously to appoint me in January 2024. I was 36 years old, the youngest board member by 11 years. Philip asked me to chair the operations committee. That meant oversight on all logistics, facilities, and supply chain functions. It meant reviewing director-level and above hires. It meant approving VP-level positions and major operational expenditures. I took it seriously. I read every proposal. I asked hard questions. I held people accountable. In December 2025, during our quarterly board meeting, HR presented the Q1 2026 hiring pipeline. Standard update. They mentioned they were filling a senior logistics coordinator position. I asked about the role requirements. HR confirmed it was a standard hire, mid-level position, nothing unusual. I approved the budget allocation. 3 days later, I went to that Christmas dinner. I found out about the application on January 12th. It was a Monday morning. I was at home, drinking coffee at my kitchen table, reviewing board materials for the upcoming quarter. My inbox pinged. Subject line, Candidate Review Request, Senior Logistics Coordinator. I opened it. Standard process. For roles at senior level or above, the Operations Committee Chair gets a notification to review the candidate pipeline. Just a formality for most positions. I usually skim the names, verify the hiring manager has followed protocol, and approve. I clicked on the attachment, PDF file, resume. The name at the top, Gerald Robinson. I froze. Read it again. The words didn't change. I scrolled down. Employment history, education, references. Everything matched. My father. Applying to Crescent Solutions, the company where I sit on the board, the company where I chair the committee that has final oversight on this exact type of hire. I closed my laptop, stood up, walked to the window, looked out at nothing for 30 seconds, opened the laptop again. The resume was solid. 35 years of logistics experience. His most recent role at a mid-size firm showed relevant skills. Salary expectation, $78,500. Reasonable for the position. Under, "Why are you interested in this role?" he'd written, "I bring 35 years of logistics excellence and am seeking a role where I can contribute meaningfully in the final phase of my career." I sat with that for a long time. The final phase of his career. He was 64, close to retirement, looking for one last position before he stopped working entirely. And he'd applied here. Of all the companies in Charlotte. Of all the open positions. He'd applied to a company where I hold a board seat. He had no idea. I picked up my phone. Almost called my mother. Put it down. Stared at the screen for another minute. Then I opened my email and typed a message to Lauren Ashford, the HR director, and Janet Cooper, the hiring manager. I need to recuse myself from the Robinson application. Personal conflict of interest. Please proceed with interview and evaluation without my input. Send me only the final recommendation after the process is complete. I hit send before I could second-guess it. Lauren called me an hour later. "Anita, I saw your recusal note. Everything okay?" "Family matter," I said. "He's qualified. Proceed normally." "Understood. We'll move forward." She paused. "Just so you know, he's scheduled to interview on the 21st. I'll keep you updated on process only, no details." "Thank you." I hung up, sat in my kitchen, looked at my father's resume still open on my screen. He thought I was a janitor. He'd humiliated me in front of 25 people, and now he was asking for a job at a company where I serve on the board of directors. I could have blocked it. One email. One word to Lauren. Not a fit. That's all it would have taken. But I didn't. Because that would have been unethical. And I don't make hiring decisions based on personal feelings. The interview happened on January 21st without me. I got a brief update from Lauren. Robinson interviewed well. Strong candidate. Good logistics background. Team fit positive. On January 24th, the formal recommendation came through. We would like to extend an offer to Gerald Robinson for Senior Logistics Coordinator position at $78,500 annual salary. Per board policy, all senior hires require sign-off from the Operations Committee Chair. The document arrived in my DocuSign queue. I opened it, read it, looked at the two buttons at the bottom. Approve, decline. My cursor hovered over decline for 10 seconds. Then I clicked approve. Lauren texted me an hour later. Robinson accepted. Start date February 23rd. Thanks for the quick approval. I texted back. Welcome aboard. Then I opened my calendar and looked at February 23rd, 2026. I circled it. That was the day my father would walk into the lobby of Crescent Solutions, the lobby where our board of directors is displayed on the wall. 7 professional photographs, 3 feet by 4 feet each, names and titles on brass plaques below. Mine is 5th from the left, February 23rd, 2026, Monday morning. I wasn't there to see it happen. But I know exactly how it went, because Lauren told me later, and because I know that building, and because I can imagine the look on his face. My father arrived at 8:30. Early. He'd always been early to first days, back when he still had first days that mattered to him. He parked in the visitor lot, walked to the main entrance. Glass and steel. Modern building in downtown Charlotte. Professional. Exactly the kind of place he'd want to work. The security desk was just inside. The guard checked his name against the list. Gerald Robinson? Welcome. First day? Yes. You'll love it here. Great company. Leadership solid. The guard handed him a temporary badge on a lanyard. HR is on the 3rd floor. Elevators are to your left. My father thanked him and turned toward the elevators. That's when the guard added, "Oh, if you have a minute, check out the board wall. We just got it updated last month." Niet. My father stopped. Board wall? The guard pointed across the lobby. Yeah, board of directors. Over there on the west wall. Pretty impressive. My father looked. From the elevator bank, you can't quite see the details. Just the outline of frames. Large frames. He walked toward it. The wall is 15 feet wide. Floor to ceiling. 7 portraits mounted in a precise line. Professional photography. Each face lit perfectly. Names and titles engraved on brass plaques mounted below each photograph. He scanned them left to right. CEO, Philip Hendricks. CFO, Catherine Brennan. External directors he didn't recognize. Then he reached the 5th portrait. Lauren told me later that he went completely still. Just stopped moving. She was crossing the lobby at that exact moment, on her way to meet him for orientation, and she saw him freeze in front of the wall. The photograph is 3 feet by 4 feet. Professional headshot. Me in a navy blazer, hair styled, the kind of photo you take when you're representing a company at the governance level. The brass plaque below reads, Anita Robinson, board member, operations committee chair. My father stood there. Lauren said he didn't move for a full minute. Other employees walked past. Someone said, "Excuse me," to get around him. He didn't seem to hear. Then he pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking. Lauren could see it from across the lobby. He searched something. She couldn't see what. But I know. I know he searched Anita Robinson Crescent Solutions Board. The results would have shown the announcement from January 2024. Crescent Solutions announces board appointment, Anita Robinson, to chair Operations Committee. He would have seen my LinkedIn. VP of Corporate Services at Piedmont Logistics. Board member at 3 companies. Education. Experience. A career documented in detail that he'd never bothered to look at. Lauren walked up to him. "Mr. Robinson?" He looked up. His face had gone pale. That's my daughter." Lauren later told me she didn't know what to say. She'd seen my recusal note, but she didn't know the full story. She just knew there was a family connection and I'd stepped back. "Oh," she said. "I didn't realize." "Yes, Director Robinson is on our board." "She knew," he said. His voice was quiet. "She knew I applied." Lauren chose her words carefully. "She recused herself from your hiring process due to the conflict of interest. You were hired on merit, Mr. Robinson. Your qualifications stood on their own." He stared at her, processing. "She recused herself." "Yes. She maintained complete professional boundaries. Are you ready for orientation?" He nodded, didn't speak, just followed her to the elevators. The orientation lasted 3 hours. Presentations on company culture, policies, benefits, IT setup, paperwork. Introduction to his new supervisor, Janet Cooper, who reported to a director, who reported to a VP, who reported to the executive team, who reported to the CEO, who reported to the board. The board I sit on. Lauren told me he couldn't focus. His supervisor asked him questions and he answered, but his mind was somewhere else. At lunch, he excused himself, went to the bathroom, pulled out his phone again. He texted me, "We need to talk. Now." I didn't respond immediately. I was in a meeting. When I saw it 2 hours later, I read it 3 times before answering. "I'm available to meet Thursday evening if you'd like to talk. Let me know." Professional? Cool. No emotion. He texted back in under a minute. Thursday, 7 p.m. Where? I'll send you an address. The rest of his first day passed in a haze, Lauren told me. At the 4:45 all-hands announcement, someone mentioned that next month's quarterly meeting would include the full board. Great chance to meet leadership, they said. His new supervisor added, "You'll get to meet everyone. CEO does these quarterly all-hands. Board usually sits in. Great way to see how we operate at the strategic level." My father left at 5:30. Lauren said she watched him walk back through the lobby. He stopped at the board wall again, looked at my photograph, at my title. Then he walked out to the parking garage. He sat in his car for 20 minutes before he could drive home. Thursday, February 26th, 7 p.m. I chose Amélie's French Bakery in Dilworth. Quiet. Public enough to be safe, private enough to talk. I arrived at 6:55 and took a corner booth. My father arrived at 7:02. He looked exhausted, older than I remembered. He saw me and walked over, sat down across from me without saying hello. Long silence, the kind that presses on your chest. Finally, he spoke. "You knew. You saw my application. You could have blocked it. Why didn't you?" I kept my voice level. "Because you were qualified. I don't make hiring decisions based on personal feelings. That would be unethical." He stared at me. "Unethical?" "Yes." I thought. He stopped. Started again. "For 20 years, I thought you were wasting your life. I thought you were beneath what you could be. I know what you thought, Dad. You made it very clear. At every promotion, at every milestone, at Christmas dinner in front of 25 people." He looked down at his coffee, didn't touch it. "The question isn't what you thought," I said. "The question is why you never asked. Why you never looked. Why you assumed the worst and wore it like a badge of honor." "I was trying to push you," he said, "to make you aim higher." "No." My voice stayed calm. "You were trying to make yourself feel superior. There's a difference." He flinched. "Good," I continued. "I'm VP of Corporate Services at Piedmont Logistics. I oversee a $180 million budget and 340 employees across 6 states. I serve on 3 corporate boards. I chair the operations committee at Crescent, which means I have oversight on senior hires in your department." I paused. Let that sit. "My compensation is $310,000 a year. I own my home. I'm debt-free. I've built a career that matters." He was looking at me now. Really looking. Maybe for the first time. "You called me a janitor," I said. And yes, facilities management includes custodial services, but it also includes engineering, infrastructure, logistics, safety, compliance, and strategic operations. You never bothered to learn the difference." "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice cracked slightly. "Why should I have to? Why wasn't my word enough?" He had no answer for that. I leaned forward slightly. "You blamed me for Mom leaving. You sent me an email saying I broke up the marriage. That wasn't true then, and it's not true now. Mom left because of how you treated both of us. She just found her courage first." "I didn't," he started. "You did," I interrupted. "You used me as a scapegoat because it was easier than looking at yourself. Mom is happier now than I've ever seen her. That should tell you something." He was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was smaller. "I was trying to be a good father. I wanted success for you. You wanted a trophy. I was never going to be that. So you decided I was nothing." The words hung between us. Around us, the coffee shop continued. People ordering, conversations happening, a couple laughing at a nearby table. Normal life going on while we sat in the wreckage. "Can you—" He stopped, swallowed. "Can you fire me? Is that why we're here?" I shook my head. I don't fire people, Dad. I'm board governance, not operations. But could I make your employment uncomfortable? Yes. Will I? No. You were hired fairly. You'll be treated fairly. As long as you do your job is safe. He looked confused. Lost. I don't understand. After everything I've said, why would you let me keep the job? Because I'm not you, I said simply. I don't measure people by whether they worship me. I measure them by whether they do the work. I stood. The movement was final. He looked up at me. Wait. What? What happens now? With us? I stayed standing, looked down at him still seated. The position was deliberate, a reversal of every time he'd stood over me, looking down, making me feel small. What happens now is up to you, I said. If you want a relationship with me, it comes with conditions. He waited. 1. You go to therapy. Individual and family, if I agree to family sessions. 2. You apologize to Mom. A real apology, in writing, taking responsibility. 3. You apologize to the family. The same 25 people who heard you humiliate me, publicly, at the next gathering. I let each condition land separately. Those are my terms. If you're not willing, then we can have a professional relationship only. You're an employee at a company where I'm a board member. We stay in our lanes. But we don't have a father-daughter relationship. Your choice. And if I do those things? He asked quietly. Then maybe we can start to rebuild. But it won't be fast. And it won't be on your terms. I picked up my coat. Think about it. Let me know. I walked out. Left him sitting there with his untouched coffee and his shattered assumptions. The night air was cold. I got in my car and sat for a moment before starting the engine. My phone was in my hand. I looked at it. No messages, no missed calls. I drove home in silence. He texted me 8 days later. February 14th, Valentine's Day. Maybe the date was intentional, maybe not. The message said, I need more time. I saw it, didn't respond, went back to work. 6 hours later, another message. No, I don't need more time, I'll do it. All 3. I read it twice. Then I typed back, okay. Let me know when you've scheduled the therapy. 3 days later, February 17th, he sent me a screenshot. An appointment confirmation with Dr. Raymond Pierce. First session, February 21st, 3 p.m. I replied, good. On February 20th, my mother called me. Your father sent me a letter, she said. Her voice was careful. An apology. A real one. What did it say? She was quiet for a moment. He said he failed me as a husband, failed you as a father, that he blamed us both for his own inadequacy, that I deserved better. She paused. He said he was sorry. How do you feel about that? Honestly, relieved. Not that he apologized. I don't need his apology. But relieved that maybe he's finally looking at himself. That's something. I asked her if she was going to respond. I already did, she said. I told him I appreciate it, but it doesn't undo the past. That I hope he's doing this for himself, not just to appease you. We talked for a while longer, about other things, normal things, the art class she was taking, the book club she'd joined, her life, which was full now. Before we hung up, she said, I'm proud of you, Anita, for setting boundaries, for demanding respect. That's what I should have taught you earlier. You taught me by example, I said. When you finally left, February 21st, my father's first therapy session. He told me about it later. Not everything. Just enough. Dr. Pierce asked standard questions, background, family history, what brought him in. My father explained the Christmas dinner, the divorce, my career he'd dismissed, the board wall, the ultimatum. What do you want to be different? Dr. Pierce asked. My father said, I want my daughter back. But more than that, I want to be someone worth having back. Dr. Pierce told him, That's honest. That's a good foundation. But I'll tell you right now, this won't be fast, and it won't be comfortable. You're going to have to confront some very hard truths about yourself. The sessions continued, weekly, every Monday at 3 p.m. By early March, he'd been 4 times. He told me the work was harder than he'd expected, that Dr. Pierce kept asking him questions he didn't want to answer, about his own father, about patterns he'd repeated, about the gap between the father he thought he was and the father he'd actually been. We met for coffee twice in March, brief meetings, stilted conversations, but not hostile. He asked me about my work. Actually asked, actually listened. I kept my boundaries clear. We're not there yet, Dad. He nodded. I know. At our second coffee meeting on March 18th, he told me, I'm going to Easter dinner at Aunt Judith's. She invited everyone again. I'm going to apologize. The way you asked. Is that okay? I looked at him. If you're doing it because you mean it, yes. If you're doing it to check a box, don't bother. I mean it, he said. I think. I'm still learning how. Late March. A Saturday evening. I was at my mother's house. Her townhouse in Dilworth. The one she'd moved to after the divorce. We were having dinner. Just the two of us. Something we did every few weeks now. Her kitchen was painted bright yellow. Photos on the fridge from her Italy trip. Paint-stained hands from the art class she taught on weekends. She'd made pasta from scratch. We sat at her small table with wine and talked about everything and nothing. Eventually, the conversation turned to my father. He sent me another letter, she said. Not an apology this time, an update. He's in therapy. He seems different, humbled. I swirled my wine. That's good, but I'm not declaring victory yet. You don't have to, she said. Just wanted you to know. We talked about Easter. Both of us were planning to go. Both of us would witness his public apology, if he followed through. What if he doesn't do it right? I asked. What if he makes excuses? My mother considered this. Then you'll know he's not ready, and you'll adjust your boundaries accordingly. You're allowed to protect yourself, Anita. I nodded, took a sip of wine. Whatever happens at Easter, she continued, I'm proud of you. You set boundaries. You demanded respect. That's what I should have modeled earlier. You did model it, I said. When you left. That was the bravest thing I ever saw. She smiled, reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We talked about other things then. Her next art project, a trip she was planning to Santa Fe, the book club discussion she'd led last week. Her life was hers now. Full, rich, free. Later, as I was getting ready to leave, I stopped at her fridge, looked at the photos, Italy, art class. Her and her friends laughing. Not a single photo of my father. You know, she said from behind me, I don't know if you and your father will ever be close. That might not be possible. But maybe you can be civil. Maybe that's enough. I turned to look at her. Is it enough for you? She thought about it. I don't need him in my life at all. But you're his daughter. That's different. You get to decide what enough looks like. I hugged her goodbye, drove home through Charlotte streets I'd known my whole life. When I got home, I poured myself one more glass of wine, stood at my window looking out at the city lights. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. Therapy session 6 tomorrow. Dr. Pierce is helping me write the apology for Easter. I want to get it right. I didn't respond immediately, just looked at the message. Finally, I typed. Good. Let me know if you need anything. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever in the way he wanted. But it was a door left open. just slightly. I went to work the next day like any normal Monday. Board meeting at Crescent in the afternoon. I sat in my usual seat in the conference room. Philip at the head of the table, Catherine to his right, the other board members in their positions. We reviewed Q1 numbers, discussed strategic initiatives, approved capital expenditures, normal governance work. At one point, Philip mentioned employee retention in operations. We've had good stability this quarter, new hires integrating well. Lauren, joining via video for her HR update, nodded. Yes, orientation feedback has been strong. Even our most recent hires in logistics are settling in nicely. I didn't react, kept my face neutral, professional. After the meeting, Philip caught me in the hallway. Anita, quick question about the operations committee report for next month. We talked shop for 10 minutes. At no point did he mention my father. At no point did I bring it up. Because that's the thing about professional boundaries. They protect everyone. They keep power from being abused. They ensure that the work gets done regardless of personal complications. I drove home that evening thinking about my father sitting in his therapy session, writing an apology he should have written decades ago, learning lessons he should have learned before he had a daughter to damage. Better late than never, I suppose, but also too late for some things. He can apologize at Easter. He can mean it. He can do the work in therapy. He can rebuild some version of a relationship with me, but he can't give me back the childhood where I felt valued. He can't give me back the young adult years where I needed a father who believed in me. He can't erase the Christmas dinner where he tried to humiliate me in front of everyone who mattered. Those things are gone. What he can do is show up differently now, if he chooses, if he's capable. And what I can do is decide how much space to give that effort. On March 28th, I had dinner with my mother again. Same yellow kitchen, same ease between us. We talked about Easter, now 2 weeks away. She'd confirmed with Aunt Judith that both of us would be there. My father had apparently asked Judith if he could say something before the meal. Judith asked me if that was okay, my mother said. I told her yes. Whatever he needs to do, let him do it. I asked if she was nervous. No, she said. He can't hurt me anymore. I'm past that. She looked at me. Are you nervous? I thought about it. No, just watchful. We clinked our wine glasses together. A small gesture, easy and familiar. To being seen, I said. My mother smiled. To being seen. We drank. Outside, the Charlotte skyline glowed in the distance. Somewhere across town, my father was preparing words he hoped would matter. At Crescent Solutions, my photograph still hung on the lobby wall beside the CEO's. At Piedmont, my office still carried my title. My life still moved forward. The board wall didn't need me to defend it. It just existed. Permanent, public, undeniable. That, more than any apology, was the victory. Not revenge, not even vindication, exactly. Just the truth. Visible to anyone who cared to look. My father had looked up at that wall and finally seen me. Not the version he'd invented. Not the failure he'd insisted I was. Me. Anita Robinson. Board member. Operations committee chair. Someone who'd built something real while he wasn't watching. Someone who didn't need his belief to be successful. Someone who'd given him a chance he didn't earn, because professional ethics mattered more than personal grievance. Someone who'd set terms for healing because dignity matters more than reconciliation. I finished my wine, set the glass down. My mother looked at me, really looked, the way she'd always looked, the way he never had. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. I'm okay. And I was. Not because everything was fixed. Not because my father had transformed. Not because the family had rallied around me, but because I'd built a life that didn't require any of that to be meaningful. The rest was just details.